All right, so for entity, we have set up our animation component. We've set it up for our player. There's still a couple things that we need to do to get it where we are actually seeing our player, not just seeing box 2D shapes. We have to actually go and create another component to hold the texture, and we have to start rendering. And then we have to set up our animation system so we can tell which texture to actually load. So let's continuing on. All right. Let's go and create our component. New Java class. This is going to be a texture component. Okay, so just like when we did the loading screen and we had that image of the libgdx, that's really what we are doing here, but we're doing it with Ashley. So we need component, enter, Ashley, and I don't want it to freak out again because it's annoying. Import badlogic.gdx.utils poolable. There we go. Now I can just say poolable. Sweet. I need to implement the methods, which is just a reset. Okay, so this component, the only thing that it really is going to need to hold is the current frame that needs to be drawn. Whether it's moving or anything, it will have a frame that's going to constantly get set for what it needs to be. And then our render is what is actually going to draw that to the screen. So we want to pull a texture region because instead of us just having one texture, we now are pulling, since we're using that atlas and it has lots of different areas that have a bunch of different stuff, we won't want to draw that whole thing. We want to draw just a region of it. So that texture region, let's just call it region, and we're setting it to null. Let's import that. And then we need a getter and setter for setting both of those. And then our reset, we'll just need to reset the region back to null. Okay, so that is it. Now we need to go to our entity manager again, and we have to set that animation component or the texture component. So let me open that up and look. Entity manager, we're going to create another method. Before we do that, let's go ahead and go to our mappers. We're going to add another one. PSF component mapper. This is going to be for our texture component. Texture component. Equals component mapper dot get for texture component dot class. Okay, and then we go back to our entity manager. Okay, so private entity add texture component. We need the entity string entity name. And we're going to have to set that up. Okay. That's why I did that. The texture component will either require a texture or it's going to require the animation from our stuff to be able to set it up. So here we are actually adding based off the entity. Let's use our mappers in here. Okay, texture. I'm kind of changing how I'm rewriting my original. Engine dot create component texture component dot class. All right, we're going to need to get that texture region. Okay. All right, so we're still going to end up having to do a switch based off the entity name. So let's say case player. Okay, so we need to get, and not everything is going to have an animation, but in this case, the player we know is going to have an animation. So I want to, well, this is going to be crazy. Texture component dot set region, and we know it's going to be a texture region. Texture region. So I'm casting it, and then I need to pull the animation. So we're setting an initial one, but that's going to get changed when the animations and stuff get changed. So let's see, entity dot get component, animation component. Get component. Animation component class. Let's see, what is it not like? Dot get animation. I'm going to set them as a default for down. So I need one frame from when he's down. This is getting crazy. And I need to get dot get keyframe, or excuse me, get keyframes, but I want the first frame, so 0. All right, let me just enter. All right, so what I did, I'm pulling from that entity. I know that he has an animation component because I created it. And from that animation component, I'm pulling from the array map the animations for down, and then I am getting all the frames, which it's returning an array, and I want just the first frame, which would be his Redbeard run, Redbeard down _1 PNG. So that's what I want for his texture. Oof, that one's fun. Break. That way I don't have to do anything weird on holding stuff. And I would need to do, so if I did not have, so let's do case coin, just so we can see it, because that's static. So texture component dot set region, and then I am going to load a new texture region, that is going to be, I need to pull the name. So let's look at mine to see what I could do, but yours is going to start being a little bit different here. Sprites, output. I do have coins. Control F, coin. Well, I called it Dragoon. All right, so here, this right here, this, because it's showing us -1, -1, -1 for all of these, they are not animations. There is only one of them. Now my orb, see how they're numbering sequentially up, showing me that I have 10, 11, I got 12 frames for the orb, but for my Dragoon, say 10, that is the only one. So that is a region, not regions, in my texture atlas. So I want to call this in my entity manager as a new texture region. New texture region, which would be pulled from my atlas. So this would be atlas.find region, and then I want that Dragoon 10. Now remember, that's a string. Okay, so that is setting for something that is not an animation. Is going to pull it, and once I'm done, then I need to create and add that component to my entity. So add, and then it's going to be texture component, and I am done. And I return it. Return entity. Okay, so adding that texture component, let's look. I'm spawning the entity. So for my player, I have an animation component. Now I have to pay attention to the order because I can't create the texture component without having the animation first. For my player, texture component, entity, and entity name. For my coin, I don't have an animation component, so I'm not adding that, but I do need the texture component. Entity, entity name. Okay. And that is set up. I have built the texture component. Now I need to go ahead and build a render system to be able to show the different animations and everything. So let's go to, actually let me stop that. Next video is going to be doing for the render system, and we're getting there, but we got quite a bit of code. So let's just go ahead and run to make sure that it's not going to error out. Oh, what happened? Say it ain't so. Constructor, entity manager, and class entity manager. Oh, because I didn't pass in that asset manager. My asset manager. Glad I did that. This my asset manager. And let's see. Let's run that again. Okay, so we are back to where it's loading. So it's taking our components. We still have to do the systems to make everything work, but we have created the texture component. We've also created our animation component. Now we need to do a render system to render those texture regions and the animation system to change our texture regions for the animations. All right, good luck, have fun.